A gute Woche. Rebbe will gesund sein beginnen Farbrengen this afternoon. But this Shabbos, Pashas Lech Lecha, there's an expression from the Friedrich Rebbe that Pashas Lech Lecha is a freiliche Sedra. It's a happy Sedra. Why? Because it discusses the birth of Avraham Avinu. And Rebbe added on today, especially, it discusses Avraham Avinu after the Rebbe has told him Lech Lecha, me'artzecha, me'meladetecha, me'beis avicha. Rebbe told him that he should leave his home, he should leave his environment. And where should he go to? He should go El ha'aretz asher hareka. He should go to the place that the Rebbe will show him. The Rebbe didn't even tell him where. The Rebbe told him he should be willing to follow his instruction to go wherever he's sending him. So here we come right away. What does it mean? See, this explains that Artzecha, Memeladetecha, Mebeis Avicha means that a person is to get out of all his habits which he got used to, the effect of his environment, the effect of the country, which is the country of origin, all these things which had a negative effect on him. So what's the Rebbe telling Avraham Avinu? Lech Lecha, go out of all these things. And by going out of all these things, where will he come? He will come El ha'aretz asher hareka. He will come to the place which the Rebbe is showing him. And the Rebbe said today there are two taichen. One taich is the simple taich, that he will arrive El ha'aretz asher hareka, to the place where the Rebbe is directing him to. A tifa taich is, the Rebbe says, by doing this, Avram will come asher hareka. The Rebbe will show what the true Avram is. And the Rebbe explained that when a person is raised, and is raised in his place, this place of birth, and he's in that place, kind of like there's no room for the person to grow. But once Avraham has left his environment, and has left and he's achieved on his own that he's grown, he had aliyas achei aliyas, and all this was on his own, then he's going to be shown as the true Avram. As the Rebbe says, he will show him, ich will dir beweisen, he will make known, he will make seen what Avram is, at what level Avram is standing. In other words, once Avram fulfilled the Lech Lecha, me'artzecha, me'meladetecha, me'beis avicha, he's reaching to the level that the Rebbe is making, asher hareka, the Rebbe wird beweisen what Avram Avinu is. It says the same is regarding every Yid. Every Yid has a neshama. Neshama of a Yid comes mi'igra rama lebeira amiktav. Neshama comes from a very high mountain down to a very deep ditch. And as the neshama is standing, before the neshama came down into this world, the neshama was standing at a level of amida, at a level of standing. In other words, it's brought out always in Chassidus that the difference between the neshama coming down into this world as opposed to the way the neshama was before the neshama came down here, that down here the neshama is given an opportunity of growth, to become a mahalich, to keep on going from step to step, higher and higher. As opposed to while the neshama is lamayla, before it came down into the guf, the neshama is at a level of amida, standing. But at the same time, what is the inyan of amida? Amida is standing, and amida brings out also an inyan of bittul. The neshama has no feeling of its own. The neshama is totally dedicated to the Eibishter. This is also what we say in davening, L'kai neshama shenasata bi tehoirahi. The neshama at its first origin is at a level of tehoirahi. Then the neshama goes through different stages. Barasa yitzarta, barasa ata yitzarta ata nefachta bi. And this is how the neshama comes down here lamata. It says it could be explained that the three stages of the Yeridas HaNeshama, Barasa, Yetzarta, Nafachta, correspond to the three levels which we're talking in this week's Sedra, Lech Lecha, me'artzecha, me'meladetecha, me'beis avicha. Once the Neshama does come down into this world, the Neshama here is given the opportunity to become a mahalich, and keep on going higher and higher, from level to level, madrega to madrega. And when we're talking about going from madrega to madrega, the Rebbe stresses, we're really talking about halicha, in a level of ein aroich, unlimited, infinite growth from one level to another. This is what's demanded from the neshama when the neshama came down into this world. It says this also reminds us of the inyan of Shnas Hayeled v'Hayalda, which we're talking about recently. Recently, the Rebbe is proclaimed this year that this is a year for the Jewish boy and the Jewish girl, to make sure that every Jewish boy and Jewish girl receive a proper Jewish chinuch. The Rebbe says in chinuch of a child, it's very much noticeable the growth. Even though by adults an adult also has to constantly keep on going from madrege to madrege. Even when we're talking about a yid with a long white beard, he also cannot satisfy himself and stay at one level, and also has to keep on being a mahalach and going from level to level. But where is it noticeable in a very strong way, the whole idea of growth? This is especially emphasized in chinuch of a child. Because in the chinuch of a child, it's extremely noticeable how the child keeps on growing and gaining knowledge, and when the child grows in the proper way, his knowledge is gained in the proper way, and also follows the guidance of his parents and follows the guidance of his teachers, until there are things which he learns from Teicha Sefer, and there are ninyanim which he gets to know from by heart. All of this come as a result of a proper chinuch which is given to a child. And by children especially, it is noticed the inyan of growth. Halicha be'ein aroich is very much noticed in the child. If we're talking about the inyan of going from level to level, and the going from level to level should be in a way of ein aroich, in an unlimited way, which this is how Avodas Hashem is demanded. This is also leading us into another inyan which the Rebbe has been speaking about lately, and that's about the inyan of biniyah, of building. We know that building. We know that the Rebbe lately is demanding very strongly, that extreme need that every institution should have their own building. House of Torah, a house of Tefillah, a house of Tzedakah, all types of organizations should be housed in their own buildings. The Rebbe says when one reaches the level of a change, going out from rented space and coming into his own building, coming into his own binyan, here it is extremely felt also an inyan of halicha be'ein aroich. It's also felt very strongly at a very large scale, the move from one step to another. The inyan, the concept of having an own building, concept of the inyan of bniyah, construction, building. And the Rebbe says even by Yankov we find it. By Avram. By Avram in this week's Seder we also find how Avram was constantly traveling, and each place that he came to, he built a mizbeach. What's the pshat? He built a mizbeach because each place he came to, he reached to a yet higher madrege. And when he reached the yet higher madrege, it resulted that he built a mizbeach. We also find in the Psukim that when Avram built oihalim, tents, in other words, also an inyan of building. This is, Rebbe brought out that being that Avram's occupation was, as the rest of the others, they were royei tzayin, they were shepherds. So the way the shepherd lived in those days was that he did not have what we would call a permanent type of a house, but his residence was in a type of a oihel. And this is how Avram lived. But also, again, he built the house which was suitable for him at that time. Again, the inyan of bniyah. Especially when we're talking, all of this is in Pashas Lech Lecha. Pashas Lech Lecha comes when we are at the beginning of the month of Cheshvan. Pashas Bereishis we always read in the month of Tishrei. Pashas Noach is always in Cheshvan, but sometimes it could be into Cheshvan, and sometimes it could be on the day of Rosh Chodesh Cheshvan. Pashas Lech Lecha is always when we are already into the month of Cheshvan. What is the month of Cheshvan? The month of Cheshvan differs from all months of the year. It differs from all months of the year in the fact that Cheshvan does not have any yontif in it. All Yomim Tovim all months have something special in the month. However, the month of Cheshvan does not. However, Cheshvan comes right after Tishrei. Tishrei is the month which is Meruba b'Moedos. Many holidays we have in the month of Tishrei. Full of holidays. Comes Cheshvan, we have no yontif in Cheshvan. There is the inyan of the 15th of the month, when the moon stands in its completeness. Kaim Basir Bashlam Musa. But this is not different in Cheshvan, different than in any other month. Then we have the fact of Zayin Cheshvan, 7 days in the month of Cheshvan, that is when in Eretz Yisrael they would begin praying for rain. So again, this is something which is only limited to Eretz Yisrael. In Eretz Yisrael, that is when the last one, that is the person that went for Sukkot to the Beis HaMikdash. People had to be Oila Regel. So it would take until Zayin Cheshvan for a person to come back to the one that lived the furthest point away from the Beis HaMikdash. He would arrive home on Zayin Cheshvan. So that is why on Zayin Cheshvan they would begin asking for rain, because prior to that people were still walking home from the Beis HaMikdash on their way home, so they wouldn't ask for rain, wouldn't be suitable. But once everybody reached already their homes, that is when it was practical to ask for rain. But again, this inyan of Zayin Cheshvan is something which is limited only to residents of Eretz Yisrael. But a general type of Yontif we do not find in the month of Cheshvan. In Kislev, we have Chanukah. In Teves, we have Asara B'Teves, which is Takanawa fast, but we hope that that day will be turned into, will be Yehotzchu Yomim Eilu L'Sasan L'Simcha, to be converted to days of joy. Right in the month of Shvat, we have Chamishasa B'Shvat, Tu B'Shvat. The month of Adar, the entire month, is a special month. How do we say in the Megillah that the entire month was converted, was changed from a month of sorrow, from a month of sadness to a happy month? We come to the month of Nisan. Nisan is a very special month. Nisan is Nisim, double Nisim. But the Shaitat would have to double Nisim. The Gemara says that if one sees the word Nisan in his dream, this is an indication that you should expect a multiple amount of Nisim. Why? Because it has 2 nuns, Nisan, double Nisim. Then we come to the month of Iyar. Iyar again is a very special month. Iyar we count Sfiras Omer. The month that we count Sfiras Omer, so it's an exceptional month in the whole year. Every day of the month we are given an opportunity to fulfill a special mitzvah. That is in the month of Iyar. Comes the month of Sivan, that is the month of Kabbalah Satayah. Month of Tammuz, again, that is when we receive the Luchas. Like a Moshe Rabbeinu broke the Luchas, that happened in Shavasa B'Tammuz. But again, these days will be changed to days of happiness and joy. The month of Av, we have Chamisha B'Av, and regarding Chamisha B'Av, the Gemara tells us that there was no equivalent by Yidden in a Yontif that can compare to the greatness of the Yontif on the 15th of Av. The month of Elul is a special month. It's a month that we have an opportunity for Chodesh HaRachamim, and then from that, from the month when we make the Cheshbon Nefesh for the entire year, then we have the latter part of the month, we have Chai Elul, which gives us the highest in the Avodah of Elul. So it's again, every month has its specialty. The only month which does not have any special inyan is the month of Cheshvan. What's the Taich? Rebbe brought out that it's explained. Alter Rebbe explains in the introduction to the second part of Tanya, introduction to Sha'ir and Vermonah. Alter Rebbe brings out there's an inyan of Sheva Yipol Tzadik Become. Before we come to a great aliyah, to a great uplifting, at times it's necessary to have a yerida. The Pasuk uses the expression Sheva Yipol Tzadik Become. Seven times the Tzadik will fall, and later the come, then he will stand firm. Rabbi says the reason that the pasuk mentions 7 is that doesn't mean exactly 7. It means that we'll notice that in Kedusha there are different type of general numbers which are used. Sometimes we use number 10, sometimes we use number 7, sometimes we use number 5. These are like general numbers which are usually used regarding general and yonim. But at the same point, for example, if one wants to jump over a very high spot, he usually has to run back a little bit. So in other words, this indicates that before an aliyah stands room for a yerida. The same as when we're talking about in the month of Cheshvan. Doesn't mean chas v'shalom that here we are without any yomim tovim. It's a month that has nothing special in it. On the contrary, this is the month which we are going here from Tishrei, which is full of yomim tovim. We are entering into the month of Cheshvan. And then later it'll be from Cheshvan that it is Take Yerida on one hand, but it's through this Yerida that we will come to Aliyahs and carry through Avodas Hashem in a format of Aliyah and going higher and higher. As I stressed earlier, going an Aliyah from step to step, and the aliyahs will be in a way of ein aroich, and all of this will be throughout the entire year. So true, on one hand, cheshvan in itself does not have any yomim tovim, but on the other hand, this is the yerida that leads to the aliyahs which will be coming following it. And this is the general message which we get here in this week's Chazarah, which is something which is negayah, which relates to the entire year. Something which is negayah to every yid, that every yid, every neshama goes through this inyan of Lech Lecha, Ma'aretzecha, Ma'aladetecha, Ma'beis Avicha. This message is given to every yid, every neshama comes down into this world, and goes through the Lech Lecha, and then in the Lech Lecha, it's Lech Lecha, a double expression. What's a double expression? So it's explained in the Chassidus that there's an aliyah, there's a halicha, in other words, which is milmata lamayla, and there's a halicha milmayla lamata. Halicha milmayla lamata, this is expressed through limud haTorah. Torah has come from lamayla and traveled down to lamata, and was totally given over into the hands of Yidden. As we know, that all matters, all decisions on halacha, once Torah was given over to Yidden, who does it depend? All decisions of halacha, it depends all on Yidden. Bezdin Shalmayla does not get involved in any piskidinim of halacha. It's all in the hands of Yidden here, that Yidden should pass halacha. Then there is an inyan of a halicha, which is milmata lamayla. That is through the fulfillment of mitzvahs. What Yidden are mekayim mitzvahs here, mitzvahs stems from the word tzafsa v'chibur, it's attachment. It attaches. Whom does it attach? It attaches the one who fulfills the mitzvah, the one who follows the commandment, and the one who issued the commandment to the Rebbeinu Shalom. In other words, through a mitzvah, Yid becomes tafsa v'chibah, becomes totally united with the Rebbeinu Shalom, who is the commander of the mitzvah. The Rebbe says it's customary also in the Farbrengen to explain the first Rashi of the Sedra. And the first Rashi of this week's Sedra, Rashi comments on the words Lech Lecha. So Rashi says, Lahana oscha u'letoivoscha. The Rebbe is telling Avraham Avinu that it's advisable for him to leave Artzecha, Meladetecha, Ma'beis Avicha. And he shall, and this is Lahana osai, it is for his pleasure, u'letoivosai, and it is for his good. The question arises, why does Rashi have to add these words into his pirush? It says because Rashi was troubled with the question, why is there a double expression in the pasuk? Pasuk could have said only lech. Why does the pasuk say lech lecha? Is a simin? There are two inyanim involved here. There is one inyan is lahana oscha for your enjoyment, and another one is l'tevascha for your good. What is the difference between hanoah and teva? The Rebbe brought out. Hanoah is pleasure. It was in Avram's interest, it was his pleasure that he should leave Charan and should follow the direction of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and go to Eretz Yisrael. Why? Simple. Because Avram, who has recognized HaKadosh Baruch Hu and was involved in spreading the Rebbeishter's name, he didn't only hold it to himself, he spread it to others. So Avram was given an opportunity to leave the environment where there was a lot of Avodah Zarah. They were all worshipping Avodah Zarah, they were all worshipping idols. And here Avram is given an opportunity to leave this place, so this is definitely to Avram's hana, to Avram's satisfaction. So he's definitely happy from the fact that he's given an opportunity to leave here. Because the entire environment where Avram was something which was, if I should use the expression, Avram just couldn't tolerate it. It was something which was not bakfem, it was not suitable, it was not pleasant in any way for Avram to be totally in an environment of people that are worshipping Avodah Zarah. But not only that, the Rebbe tells him, not only is it lana oscha, not only is it something which you will enjoy, but it is also for your good. What's the difference between enjoyment and good? The Rebbe says like this: enjoyment is something which a person feels right away, something which immediately has an effect on the person. He enjoys it. The Rebbe told him, leave, Lech Lecha. So we say this is something which brings hanoah to Avram, as we just explained, for the simple fact that Avram is leaving, and he will enjoy that he's no longer in this environment of people that are worshipping Avodah Zarah. But the Rebbe is telling him there's more than that. There is a toiv, there is a good in this for you. What's the type of good? Good is something, it may not be seen right away. It may not be felt right away. You may not realize the results until many, many years from now. But nonetheless, it is for your good. You should know there will be fruitful results to your good, to your satisfaction, which may not be seen and proven until later years. But I'm telling you now, Lech Lecha, La'na'ascha, U'L'toivascha. Like the Rebbe brought an example from the pasuk, Tzadik Hatoma Yifchach. A tzaddik blossoms. A tzaddik is compared to a tama, to a tree that grows dates. A tree that grows dates takes 70 years for it to grow. So what's the pshat? You plant this tree, and the toiva, the good of this tree, we do not see and do not have until 70 years from now. The same, the Rebbe is telling Avram that Avram should leave, and Avram, Lech Lecha me'artzecha me'moladetecha, and this will lead that he shall come to the madrega of Asher Areka. He will be able to be seen in the real madrega, in the real sense of the real Avram. He will be able to show himself in the proper madrega that he really is. This will also bring taiva, this will also bring good that will be seen to him, and he will feel it in many years to come. Here the Rebbe also brought in how these inyanim are explained in the Chassidische Parsha, the Chassidische Sedra of this week. The Rebbe always refers to the Chassidische Sedra, he refers to the Torah and the Lekutei Torah, which is Mamara from the Alter Rebbe, set up according to Parshas HaShavua. Torah is on the Chomashim of Bereshis and Shmois, and Lekutei Torah is on the Chomashim of Vayikra, Bamidbar, and Devarim. Has a few Mamorim. Lekutei Torah also has a few Mamorim on Parshas Bishalach, but basically it's from Chumash Vayikra and further, it is Lekutei Torah. Mentioning the Lekutei Torah also explains what Avram is, the Madrega of Avram is the high Madrega of Chochma. Av, Sviras HaChochma, Rom means high, and how the Hamshacha goes from Chochma into Bina, which all of this is explained in this week's Lekutei Torah. The Rebbe says, when we're talking about Lekutei Torah, we must mention that Amal, previous times, in olden times, was a custom in all Chassidish homes, that every Chassid would learn Lekutei Torah during the winter months, and Lekutei Torah in the late part of the winter and the summer months. And this was a habit, a routine, which was in every Chassidish home. Some would learn Torah and Lekutei Torah during the entire week. Those that didn't have an opportunity to learn it during the entire week, at least Shabbos morning, before the coffee and before the tea, they would sit down and would learn Torah and Lekutei Torah. Whether they understood everything or didn't understand everything, this is irrelevant. But whatever they understood, this was a Chassidish minig and a Chassidish custom, and many children brought up in such a house and in such a custom, it led to it that even younger bachrim, younger children also followed in this path and had an interest in learning Torah and Lekutei Torah, which is called in the Chassidische Sedra, the Chassidische Parsha. In other words, how Chassidus interprets the Parsha of the week, enjoyed doing this on a weekly basis. For some reason, the Rebbe says he doesn't know why. Here in the United States, in America, he doesn't see that this minhag should be existent. Unless, he says, everybody's doing it, but they're doing it in a way of Hatzna Lecha. In other words, they're doing it in a quiet way, and they don't want anybody to know about it. He says, but this is not the right way. When you do things, you have to do it, and people should have to know that you do it. And an Indian of a chassid is not to be a Hatzna Leches, it's not to do things in a quiet way. On the contrary, and here the Rebbe came into general, bringing out that when a chassid comes into an area, his Indian is not to close up himself and not to hide, but he'll sit in his room, and he will wait until somebody knocks on his door. And when somebody knocks on his door and asks him to explain it, to relate an Indian on Yiddishkeit or Chassidus, then he will be nice enough and kind enough to respond to him. This is not what's demanded. Chassid comes into an area, everybody has to feel and everybody has to know that a chassid is there. And the chassid has to reach out to the entire community. Even though going on shlichus is something which may require a Lech Lecha, me'artzecha, me'moladetecha, me'beisavicha, to leave a Chassidish environment, to leave the home, and leave an area which which is a Chassidish area, an area which he's enjoying. And here we are telling him that he should go to a total strange area where there's no Chassidus until now, and there's no Yiddishkeit until now, and this is what we're telling him, that he should go there. So this is what's demanded from us now. What's demanded from us now is Lech Lecha me'artzecha me'moladatecha me'beis avicha. On the contrary, to reach out to areas where there's no Chassidus as yet, there's no Yiddishkeit as yet. It says, in the olden times, previously, Bacha had to spend quite a few years in Timchat Mimim. Later he was called in by the Rebbe Rashab. The Rebbe Rashab would appoint him whether he should become a mashgiach in the yeshiva or a mashpia or a rav, and designate him what he should do. Today we are in different times. The union of shlichus has a shaykhus to everybody, and every one of us carries the responsibility that we have to reach out to, in any way possible, and reach out to all Yidden and reveal within every Yid that every Yid has a neshama. And the neshama of that is within every Yid is a chelek alakami mal, and as Alter Rebbe adds on the word mamish. What's the pshat when we use the term mamish? When we use the term mamish, it means if we touch it, we feel it, we see how it is so. The same, it has a mamashas, exactly. It's tangible. When we're talking about the neshama that's within every Yid, it's the same idea. Every Yid has a neshama, and we have to realize that this neshama is a chelek alakami mal mamish, and this neshama has to be. We have to reach out to every Yid and make sure that his neshama functions the right way. It's not an Indian to sit back or to close ourselves up in our room and in our private house and stay away from confronting the public. On the contrary, Chassid comes into an area, Chassid comes into a place, Chassid comes into a city. It's his Indian to reach out in every way possible and see to it that he reaches out to all Yidden and involves all Yidden and brings them closer, side to Chassidus and side to Yiddishkeit. And that's the union of Lech Lecha me'artzecha me'moladatecha me'beis avicha. And what is accomplished and what do we achieve? We are following the instructions of the Rebishter. And the Rebbe brings Friedrich Rebbe. Friedrich Rebbe said, La'alta l'tshuva, la'alta l'gula. He demanded that Mashiach should come, that we do tshuva. Immediate we do tshuva, this will lead to immediate geula. The Friedrich Rebbe expressed himself that all that we are left with is medafim noch isputzen de kneplach. Famous expression, we are all ready for coming of Mashiach, our clothing is ready, our clothing is clean. The only thing that we have to do is we have to do the last stage, the final stage, to make sure that the buttons on our jacket have the proper shine. Isputzen de kneplach. Rebbe says, but since the Friedrich Rebbe said it, quite a few years has passed already, and we are demanding for Golus to end, we're demanding for Mashiach to come, and Mashiach still has not come. So Memela is a simon, we still have to do more, and by doing more, this will lead to it that we will do in a way of zrizis. We will not postpone. This will lead to it that the Rebishter will respond in the same way. We will, I mentioned it earlier, Pasuk says, Mikdash Adnai Koinenu Yedecha, which this Pasuk is referring to the third Beis HaMikdash. So here the Pasuk is stressing not the union of Mishkan. Mishkan was a temporary residence. The difference between Mishkan and Mishkan was more temporary, and Mikdash was a permanent house for the Shechina, house for the Rebishter. So Mamela, by us being involved in the union of Bniyah, we doing our share in the union of building houses of Torah, houses of Tefillah, houses of Tzedakah, this will lead to it that the Rebishter will act in the same way of Midah Keneged Midah. The Rebishter in turn will also build, and he will build the third Beis HaMikdash, the Mikdash Adnai Koinenu Yedecha, which he will give us the third Beis HaMikdash. Later in the Farbrengen, Rebbe continued, and the Rebbe referred to the Pekisha which is taking place this week. Rebbe spoke very highly about it. This is a Pekisha where people come and they are being introduced to Inyanim, they're being told about Inyanim. To some of them it's the first time that they're here, some of them have been here before. And they're coming here to the place which is a Bayis Godel. It's a large house. What does he mean by a large house? This is the house, the Rebbe expressed himself, this is the house that the Friedrich Rebbe has lived here the last 10 years of his life, and this is where he gave tzedakah and he learned Torah and he davened. Remember, this is the specialty of this house. And here too, we are bringing the message to the people that are coming here for the Pgisha. We're introducing them also to the Indian of Lech Lecha, Me'artzecha, Me'maladetecha, Me'beisavicha. That what's required is, we mentioned earlier, at times we have to leave certain environments, certain habits which have become part of us. And we know when we get used to something, it becomes a teva sheni, it becomes second nature within us. And what we have to do is Lech Lecha, to leave all this, and guide these people that came here to the Pgisha also, to introduce them El Haaretz and Sha'areka. The Rebbe brought out that it's never too late, the famous word from the Frierdiker Rebbe that Pesach Sheni tells us and shows us, as es kemol nishtal kein verfallen, it is never too late. And by Pesach Sheni we see something remarkable. The difference between Pesach Sheni and Pesach Rishon is when the Pesach Rishon is brought, a Pesach which is brought on in the month of Nisan, the 14th of Nisan, then when we makriv the Korban Pesach, we are prohibited to have any chametz in our home. However, by Pesach Sheni, he brings the Korban Pesach, v'chametz im bebayis, and he has chametz in his possession, he can possess chametz. What does this show? It shows that he has reached to such a madra again. Chametz is symbolic to Yetzer Hara, to the evil. It's explained at Lampen Chassidus. What do we say by Pesach Sheni? Pesach Sheni, a person has the strength that he can bring the Korban Pesach, and at the same time, the chametz which he possesses does not interfere with his Avodas Hashem. He's, on the contrary, he's given strength, he's given koiches that he can take the chametz and control the chametz. He can bring the Korban Pesach, and at the same time, he possesses chametz im bebayis. What does this mean? He controls the chametz, he controls the Yetzer Hara, he controls the Nefesh HaBahamis. Until everything, even the chametz, is also converted to Kedusha, and everything is converted, and everything that he possesses is utilized for mitzvahs, and for great mitzvahs darabim, and real great mitzvahs, the mitzvahs of Pidyon Shvuyim, to rescue the one who's a shavui, the one who's a captive. And the same thing in Ruchni is to reach out to those Yidden who are still on the level of Shvuyim. They are captive. By whom are they captive? By their own Yetzer Hara. And what we do is we are paid these Yidden, we release them from being captives by their own Yetzer Hara. And the Rebbe mentions the Gemara, Zroik Chutra A'ikra, Zroik Chutra A'avira A'ikra Koi. When you take a stick and you throw it up in the air, it would usually fall on its original ikra, on the heavy part of it. In other words, on its ikar, on its main part. The same when we are talking about Yiddishkeit, every Yid, regardless of what kind of position he's in, every Yid really possesses the Yechidisha B'nefesh. He possesses his neshama, and the neshama with the highest level of neshama. We know that the neshama has 4 components: nefesh, ruach, neshama, chai, yechida. Even the Yechidisha B'nefesh, which is within him, that he also possesses. Every Yid possesses that. And what do we say? Every Yid possesses also a nitzitz of Mashiach. A spark of Mashiach is also within each and every Yid's neshama. And when we discover a Yid, in other words, when we get involved with working with a Yid, Yid is thrown up, he comes back to his original point. What is his original point? His original point is the neshama, again the neshama which is part of each and every Yid. And here the Rebbe explained a Zohar on this week's Sedra. It's customary in Farbrengen that the Rebbe always refers to the Zohar with the commentary of his father. This week's Sedra, the Zohar relates a story. That Rabbi Eliezer came to a place, he came to a city. The city where Rabbi Eliezer came to, he met an individual, and he asked him, what is your parnasa, what is your doing? And the man told him that his doing is, he was a malamed, he was a teacher. However, they have taken the children away from me, and the children were transferred, were given over to learn under a different Rebbe, a different malamed. The man says that the people of the town are still continuing to pay me. Even though the children they took away from me, but they're still continuing to reimburse me, to pay me for, as they did in the past. Until he realized, the man says, until he realized this is no inyan. You can't take money and not teach. It's not right, it's not fair. So what he did was, he joined the other Malamed. He joined the other Rebbe, and he's helping the other Rebbe teaching children. At least this way he is justifying the fact that he's being compensated. Rebbe says the story is a very strange story, and it requires a lot of explanation. What are we saying here? That the man felt strange that he's not taking money, that he's taking money and he's really not teaching? Naturally, I mean, if a man doesn't work, if a person doesn't work, he's not allowed to take money. He's not allowed to take compensation. I mean, what is the compensation for? It's only for him working. This whole story requires a biyah, requires an interpretation. The Rebbe was masbir. Even this malamed, that the children were taken away from him. Why were the children taken away from him? Because they were given over to a different Rebbe who was a better Rebbe. So in the interest of the child, we are to protect the children were given a better teacher. However, this malamed, who was productive, for many years he was involved in chinuch, and he was raising children, raised adorim, groups and groups of children, and raised them as chassidish yidden. Even though the children are now not in his possession, they were given to another teacher, to another Rebbe, it's no inyan for him to sit back. He will go ahead, he will retire, and he will sit back and will sit and say Tehillim. That's not his inyan. What we derive from this story is, even after he was successful in raising Talmidim, he raised many Talmidim, and the Talmidim grew up, Gedoyim Nasut Yoshim, the young ones became older, and it's seen the fruit of his work. And he, at this point, does not have a class to teach, because the class that he had went to a Malamed who's teaching better than him. At the same time, he has to realize that he also has to never stop. In other words, he also, I understand correctly what the Rebbe is trying to bring out, even though this person is at a level where Taka there is a better teacher than him. But this doesn't mean that after a career of teaching, he has to just sit back, say Tehillim, and not do anything. The man did the right thing by joining the successful Rebbe and giving whatever he has, and whatever talent he still has, and whatever talent he possesses, he's producing that by the other Rebbe helping him in whatever way possible to teach the children. In other words, when a person was involved in chinuch and has his advantages and has his pluses, whatever his values which he can still share with children, even though a better Rebbe was found for the children, he too at the same time must not give up and sit back and stop doing anything. But at the same time, it is an indication that he should continue and give whatever he could give. As far as the children are concerned, the children will be getting it from one Malamed, and they will be getting it from the better Malamed, and the children will be also gaining knowledge from him. But he must continue being productive and continuing whatever he's been doing all his years. He has to continue and be active and try to give whatever he has to the children, that the children should gain from him as well. Later in the Farbrengen, the Rebbe came back to the inyan, to the lesson which we derive from Lech Lecha. Now Lech Lecha is a Horah to each and every Yid, and every Yid is told Lech Lecha that he should go. Should get out of his own routines and his own habits and his own customs, whatever he's got himself used to. But make sure that he's following the instructions of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and this will lead him al Chazarah. So that, and everybody has the thirst to come to this level. And while he was talking about the thirst, he mentioned that there's a niggun from the Alter Rebbe, which has to do with a pasuk which also discusses about thirst, referring to the niggun of Tzama Lecha Nafshi. Rebbe said it would be appropriate to sing this niggun. And let it be Hikitzu Varanenu Sheichnu Yofa, which in other words means the need of Tchis HaMeisim. The Sheichnu Yofa means that resting in the earth should rise, beginning from the Alter Rebbe, and from the Alter Rebbe through all the Rabbeim, all of Rabbeinu Nisienu, and everyone. The Rebbe added in also those who are waiting for the Kitzu V'Ranu Nushech Nuyafa of their own relatives. The Rebbe concluded, let everyone say L'chaim. Saying L'chaim and a mashka mesamechas, and a mashka which brings to happiness, which brings to simcha. Right afterwards, the Rebbe again began that it would be advisable to sing Simchas Torah Dikenigen, and again to say L'chaim. The Indian of L'chaim means L'chaim v'Lavracha. L'chaim stands for an Indian of bracha, and we know that when the Kohen Gadol would enter the Beis Hamikdash, the Kodesh HaKadoshim on Yom Kippur, this one very special day of the year, the day of Achas Bashana, the one of the year, meaning which refers to Yom Kippur, and this is the suitable day for a Kohen Gadol when he would say a special tefillah, that tefillah contained a lot of brachas for Yidden. Now we are also talking about an Indian of saying L'chaim v'Lavracha, which this will bring to Yidden a lot of bracha and everything which one needs bracha in all areas where bracha is needed, until it will lead to the ultimate bracha, which is the coming of Mashiach, and the Rebbe will not hold up the coming of Mashiach, lo yikvam afilu keheref ayin, even the blink of an eye, the Rebbe will not hold him up, but will send Mashiach to take us out of Golus.